Welcome to the GG Retrofitz graphic kit application video. So first we're going to go ahead and collect all the supplies we're going to need. So we need a spray bottle and with water. We want to dilute it with Windex. Basically we're going to create a solution that'll create a barrier between the adhesive and the surface. So this will help us with placement and positioning of each graphic. So you could dilute the water with about 50% Windex, 40%, anywhere around there is fine. Now we're going to go ahead and prepare our squeegee, or you could use a credit card or some flat hard surface that has a nice edge on it. We're going to go ahead and put a paper towel over it, kind of as a protectant so we don't scratch the graphic when we apply it. Now we're going to go ahead and get a paper towel and some alcohol and wipe down all the surfaces we're going to put graphics on. Want to make sure these are nice and clean, there's no dust or grime, or else you'll get air bubbles in your graphics. Once we have all the surfaces clean, we're going to go ahead and look at the graphic indication sheet and lay out all the graphics we want to put on first. So I chose the front fairing as a good starting point. So what you could do is just grab the graphic and place it on the front portion to see where you want to align it. Then you could go ahead and remove these two windscreen bolts. So now that we've checked the placement of the graphic, we're going to peel off the backing. Now we're going to spray some of the solution on the back side of the graphic. So basically you could go ahead and lightly put on the graphic and check the alignment and the spacing around it. So you want to have nice even spacing on top, bottom, left and right. If the positioning isn't where you want it, you can go ahead and lift it up and readjust it. That's the nice thing about using this solution. It really helps with the placement of the graphics. Now that the graphic's positioned where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and start squeegeeing from the center out. Basically, if the graphic is on a rounded surface, you want to start from the center and push out. And then if you still have some air bubbles or wrinkles, you can go ahead and use a heat gun to soften up the vinyl and push out any remaining air bubbles or wrinkles. But be careful, because once you heat up the graphic, it activates the adhesive, so it's going to become really sticky. So now that we've placed the graphic there, we're going to go ahead and find the windscreen bolt holes. Then we're going to do a cross cut so we could push the bolt through. Now we're going to go ahead and do the same for this other graphic. Go ahead, take out the windscreen bolts. Now we're going to peel the backing off and spray some of the solution on the back side. And go ahead, just move the graphic around until you find nice even clearance around it. So now I'm starting to squeegee it and push out any air bubbles or wrinkles. Since I used a heat gun on this, it's slightly stretched. So I'm going to trim off and same as the front, go ahead and find the holes for the windscreen and do a cross cut. And go ahead and put the windshield bolts back on. So now we're going to continue putting on the other graphics, and nice rule of thumb is you want to have about 2 to 3 millimeters clearance in between each graphic. They shouldn't be touching each other directly. So just go ahead and repeat the same steps. Peel off the backing, spray the solution on the back side, position it where you feel comfortable with it, and go ahead and squeegee out any of the remaining air bubbles or solution. Now that I have all the front graphics on, I'm going to go ahead and put the side fairing graphics on. And basically I want to align the graphic movement, so you could go ahead and spray the solution on the back side of the graphic. That'll help you align the graphic movement. So same as the front fairing, we're going to take this bolt off. Spray your solution on the back side of the graphic and go ahead and position it on the side fairing and try to align the graphic movement. So now that I have the graphic in place where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and squeegee out any of the remaining solution or air bubbles. Now I'm going to go ahead and find the bolt hole and do another cross cut in there and put the bolt back on. So also I want to connect the graphic shape so that there's a nice smooth movement of color. So basically I'm keep spraying the solution on the back side and adjusting the graphic until I'm happy with how it's set up. Yeah, if you're having trouble putting some graphics on and your solution is starting to dry out and it's sticking to the surface, you could go ahead and spray more solution on it and keep moving it around and adjusting it. So go ahead, find the bolt hole and do another cross cut and put the bolt back on. Now I'm going to put on the lower cowling graphic, so I'm going to take these three bolts out. And also you'll notice there's a slit in this graphic. Basically that's where the surface changes direction, so you kind of want to align that up so it fits smoothly there and have nice even spacing all around the graphic. And sometimes it's nice to step back away from the bike and look at it from afar so you could really see how everything's lining up. And once you're happy with the placement, just go ahead and squeegee out any of the remaining air bubbles or solution. Then same as before, find the holes and go ahead and do a cross cut and put the bolts back on and secure it in place. I wouldn't recommend tightening these bolts too tight because then you're going to start digging in and twisting the graphic. So just make sure all the bolts are nice and snug. So now I want to do the tank graphics. So basically I'm just placing them to see where I want to put them and peel the backing off and spray some solution on there. So this graphic is a little more tough to stick because it's recessed down on the tank cover. So I recommend really sticking the center of it first and pushing out and up. If it's not sticking as easily as you'd like or it's lifting up off the surface, you could go ahead and use a heat gun or hair dryer to soften it up. Now we're going to go ahead and put this other tank graphic on. So sometimes you should check the placement at a straight angle. And for the tank graphics, you want to make sure you have similar spacing around the gas cap. You want to make sure everything aligns nicely. If you do everything from the side of the bike, it might not line up properly once you sit on it. So graphics that are applied on such a curved surface are probably the most difficult to stick. So most likely you're going to need to use a heat gun on this one to help stretch it and squeegee it in place. And also when you use a heat gun, it makes the surface a lot softer, so it's easier to scratch. So I recommend not using a squeegee on this part here. Just use your finger to push out any air bubbles. And once you get past that hump, the rest of the graphic seems to go on pretty easily. Alright, we're going to go ahead and put the tail graphics on now. So this one's pretty easy to align up. Now we're going to go ahead and put the side tail graphics on. And like before, just check the spacing around the graphic, make sure it's nice and even before you squeegee it on there. Alright, now that we've put all the graphics on, we're going to go ahead and come back and clean up any overlapping areas or graphics that may have stretched a little bit during application. So what I like to do is grab some icy tape or pinstriping tape. Basically, you can wrap this around any area to give you a kind of guideline for cutting or trimming the graphics. So I didn't like how the ring around this headlight was looking. It wasn't very consistent. So I came in and applied some tape as a guideline, and now I'm going to cut some of the excess graphic off so it's nice and clean spacing all around. And still there was an area that was a little off, so this time I came back and cleaned it up. So now we're going to go ahead and put our custom personalized numbers on. So what you could do is just roll up some tape and put it on the back side so you can figure out the positioning you like. And I'd also step back from the bike and check it from afar just to make sure the numbers match the movement of the graphic. And once you're happy with where you've placed your number, you could go ahead and come in with some tape and create some guidelines for the top, bottom, left, and right. And this will help you align it when you put the numbers on. So now that I've made my guidelines, I'm going to go ahead and peel the backing off the number and just stick that right on there. And once you've stuck your numbers on, you can go ahead and peel off the guidelines and you're good to go.